Project Gunrunner, also known in Arizona as Operation Fast and Furious, could be the biggest and most underreported scandal of Obama's presidency. Now, a sting gone bad by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosive. It is a blunder that resulted not only in more than 1,700 smuggled weapons going from the U.S. to Mexico, and officials believe these weapons may be connected to the deaths of at least 2 Americans. Now, President Obama recently denied any prior knowledge of the operation, much less granting its authorization.
There may be a situation here in which a serious mistake was made. If that's the case, then we'll find out and we'll hold somebody accountable.
Now, congressional investigators are now demanding answers and gave today as the deadline by which the Department of Justice must deliver them. Now, meanwhile, a new covert investigation has exposed a mammogram sham at Planned Parenthood. Now, that may be responsible in this case for cheating taxpayers out of millions of dollars. Undercover phone calls to clinics in 27 different states reveal that the organization does not provide the breast cancer prevention service, as CEO Cecile Richards recently claimed. In fact, Richards used the claim as one of her main defenses as to why Planned Parenthood should keep receiving taxpayer subsidies. So if her statement was false, does that mean that the federal funding plug can finally be pulled? Here with reaction to both of these breaking stories, the author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, Culture of Corruption, Michelle Malkin, is back with us. Michelle, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Sean.
All right, let's start with Cecile Richards from Planned Parenthood and her saying that, oh, no, Planned Parenthood gives mammograms and women's services will be cut off.
Yeah.
What's going to happen as a result of this, if this bill ever becomes law, millions of women in this country are going to lose their health care access, not to abortion services, to basic family planning, mammograms.
Mammograms. Now, let's go to the audio tape, in the words of Warner Wolf, and a montage of secret phone calls to Planned Parenthood.
Is there any way that I can come in for a breast exam and a mammogram?
Okay, well, unfortunately, we do not offer, the mammogram. Thank you for calling Planned Parenthood. How can I help you?
Does Planned Parenthood provide mammograms of some sort?
We do not.
And I'm hoping I can come in, to get a mammogram. Does Planned Parenthood provide those?
We don't.
We don't do mammograms here, though.
We don't offer mammograms?
No.
Do you provide mammograms?
No, I'm sorry, we don't.
No, ma'am, we sure don't. You can try Christ Community Service.
No mammograms. Pretty big scandal. Should they be defunded?
Well, there are so many reasons that they should be defunded, and this is really just more fuel for the fire. It's about time that they be held accountable for their lies, for the propaganda. And I would like to ask where all the Democrat women politicians are who keep echoing the line of Cecile Richards, that these reproductive and women's health services are so essential and are being offered when, in fact, the tapes show everything but that.
Yeah, well, it seems like an outright lie, at least in these 27 states where they got those answers, considering that was her defense. All right. Now, this issue of Project Gunrunner, or known as Operation Fast and Furious, where these guns literally went from the U.S. to Mexico, even resulting in the deaths of Americans. You've been investigating.
I can't underscore to you, Sean, what a nightmare this entire program has been essentially from the inception. And as I've pointed out in a lot of my immigration and border security reporting from the very beginning, so many of these nightmares are bipartisan products. This thing was created under the Bush administration, received millions of dollars of funds by the little scrutinized Merida initiative, and then 10 million more in stimulus money added to it as the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms expanded its reach and authority with a program that is essentially costing American lives. And I have to give a huge amount of credit to a number of people, including David Codrea and Mike Vanderboe. These are the citizen journalists and Second Amendment advocates who have been relentless, along with many, many brave ATF whistleblowers who've warned that these guns that were supposedly monitored by ATF were able to be walked across the border right into the hands of drug cartel thugs and other criminals who then used them to shoot and kill at least one Border Patrol agent, Brian Terry, and it looks very much so that it was the same in the case of an ICE agent, Jamie Zapata, who was murdered by Mexican thugs south of the border in February. Where is the rest of the mainstream media? Yes, CBS News covered it, but for the most part, outside of Fox News, blogs, and Second Amendment advocates, this has not gotten the huge front page headline attention that it deserves.
All right, Michelle, and more information, by the way, great investigative work on both issues on your website and on foxnews.com. Appreciate, as always, what you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, time now to check in with Greta Van Susteren for a... Where are you tonight?
I'm in Dallas with the former First Lady, Laura Bush. I'm doing an event with her tomorrow on Afghanistan women. So I'm here in Dallas. But we have a great show tonight. Anyway, even though I am in Dallas, we've got former Ambassador John Bolton, because there's breaking news coming out of Libya tonight. And, of course, what about that shutdown? Are we going to have a shutdown or not? But one Republican United States senator says it might not be such a bad idea. Well, he's here to tell you why he thinks that, plus much more. So back to you,
Shut
Sean.
it down. Time for a fight. Shut it down. We've got to stand up now for our kids' future. But not that you asked me my little old opinion. What, you know, I'm just spouting off it like I always do. Huh?
I'm interested in your opinion.
All right. I say time for a fight. Time to take a principled stand. All right, Greta, we'll be watching.
All right, we'll have a fight.
An 18 short. We're going to show you a hockey fight. Wait till you see this. This got brutal. Coach Lou Holtz and others, our Great American panel next. And tonight on our Great American panel, he is a two-time Emmy-winning actor for his work on Cheers and Murphy Brown. Sirius XM radio host Jay Thomas is back. He's one of the most successful college football coaches of all time. Notre Dame coach Lou Holtz is back. She's the former communications director for the Republican Congressional Committee. Karen Hannity, no relation to Hannity, is here. All right, I played ice hockey as a kid. And you know what, Coach? We used to fight. I mean, it's not like today where you get arrested or, you know, or you get eliminated for the rest of your life. You fight, you get some time in the penalty box, and that was it. So there's this fight that goes on. Let's roll the tape. And people are freaking out over how violent this gets.
I love you, Braxton!
That's standard fare for playing hockey.
Last game I coached was South Carolina Clemson, and both teams came off the bench and got involved in a brawl. And it bothers you as a football coach, but there are certain things that happen. These are good people. You look at it, they only had 10 minutes total penalty the entire year. Those things happen, but I think that you get that much publicity, you get on the internet, things like that. You never read about that before.
Yeah. It's the focus. We were talking about it earlier. And they're going to send the kids to sensitivity training. So I'm going to tell them tomorrow they should watch a whole season of Glee. You know, just make them watch that. I think it's too bad. It's silly. Kids' jaw's broken. But I was telling Coach that referees would allow people to beat me to a pulp when I played football because they hated my guts. And would not pull people. That's true. Would not pull people off me today. They'd be going to jail for what they did to me.
Do you remember that we had the story of this kid in Australia, the bully, and the kid who was being bullied, the big kid, and he took it and took it and took it, and this little snot-nosed brat was hitting him every time, and then finally took him and slammed him on the ground. I was like, good boy. If he was my son, I'd pat him on the back and say, good job.
What do people He was suspended. No, he was expelled. He was expelled.
But that was a mistake.
Absolutely.
How many punches in the face do you have to take?
A punch.
There's a lack of respect for the game. When a fight happened at Clemson, that bothers me to this day. And I'm sure it bothers the coaches. You should have respect for what the other person does. There's no way you should ever resort to that. In 6 years at South Carolina, we never had a fight in practice. All of a sudden, the last game, both teams going to go to a bowl.
How about Notre Dame? Did you ever have a fight there?
Only in the tunnel before. But it's always the third teamers, though. The guys that aren't going to play, they go back. I punched the guy. The guy's going to play. Hey, let's get on with the game. They don't want to fight.
Hockey players aren't toothless for no reason. I mean, it's not powder puff, for crying out loud.
God was looking at, of all
There's
my
a lot
friends.
of testosterone, and you know what? You want your boys who have a lot of testosterone in a confined space and keep it there and keep it out of the streets, right?
I had friends that lost their teeth and we kept playing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we were also talking about, I come from Louisiana, and my uncles would get in fights in bars and stuff. They would go to jail now. And I remember my uncles coming home, black guys, and we would talk about it. It is different. They don't allow fighting at school. You can't make the gun finger at school.
Here's the problem today. You get in a fight, you don't know, that other guy may have a gun or a knife. You never thought about that happening before. The way it is today in our society, you can go there and have a million different reasons why our society's way.
You know something, but there's another part of our society that bugs me. It's like if you get hit, you can't hit back. I mean, the idea, I've mentioned this to friends at dinner, that if my son gets hit, I'm telling him he has my permission to defend himself.
Sure.
Hey, well, the president taught us, they bring a knife, you bring a gun.
That's right. It's the one time Obama may have gotten something right here.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree, and I think also that maybe the coaches should have known. Now, here's another thing. The bully team that was in this thing that was had been penalized the most of the whole league was being beaten 9-3. And a finesse team was beating them. You know how frustrating that is. I think the refs might have realized they're getting beat basically 80-0 in hockey, 9-3. And I think maybe the refs could have felt something. Coach was saying maybe on the field, South Carolina and Clemson, they were yelling at each other. He didn't know. But I also think that the refs have to look at what these teams are, what might happen, and take control early.
But what happens with the fight is people rush to the defense of their teammates.
Yes.
You talk about teammates defending one another, being together, being a family. Somebody hits your teammates, you're going to defend them.
Not Gretzky. He skated all the way around.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he would always skate all around.
And he used to sneak it in a back way, too. Now, you're going to judge my throwing style, right?
Absolutely.
When we come back, we'll get my grade more with our Great American panel straight ahead. Edwin, how's my throw?
I would say it's very good for a defensive player. You have nice throwing motion.
What was that for? I'm not a defensive player. I'm a quarterback, Coach.
No, I will say this. You are offensive. We'll let it go at that. Let's move on.
All right, so we're debating with Nina and Margaret earlier in the program. Look, the Republicans won a historic election, biggest midterm win in 70 years, and they made promises. They're going to repeal health care. If they can't repeal it, they defund it. They're going to cut $100 billion in this year's budget, and they're going to go back to 2008 spending levels and deal with entitlements in their first budget, which comes out next Tuesday.
Yeah, and they have an agreement, essentially. It's being reported this evening that they have an agreement for, I think, a
33.
Okay. On top of what they've already done with these continuing resolutions.
That's 43.
But next Tuesday, Paul Ryan is coming out with the 2012 budget. I think that is the budget that is really going to set the tone for Republicans going into these next elections. And this gives them an opportunity to define an entire budget cycle. No, and
that $100 billion promise, you're saying break it. And I'm saying that if they do, they're gonna tick off every single person that put their trust in them, including me. I want that promise fulfilled. I guess I'm dreaming.
Wait a second. Obama promised, I voted Democratic.
Well, that was a mistake.
That we would not have 2 wars. And he was right. We now have 3. Something happens when you get in there that I think if we were elected, we say all these things and we get in there. Now apparently, once you get the bombs in the Army, it must be fun to use them. That's all I can figure. But also, there's a reality when you get in there that you cannot get the things done you want it done. And government is not a family, and it's not a business. And I think it has problems that we try to solve. I try and solve them as a family problem or as a business problem, and it doesn't seem to work.
But there are principled people. Marco Rubio was on last night. Mike Pence is holding firm. Michelle Bachmann, Louis Gohmert. There are people that said, I've made this promise, I'm sticking by it.
Why don't you trust Washington? Because people say one thing and they do something else. I agree with her completely. I think 2012 is where the battle should be, not this year, but by the same token. If you ran and you were elected because you're going to cut $100 billion out of this budget and you vote for it, they ought to vote you out of office. You ought to go according to what you say, vote your heart, but I do believe 2012, if they don't cut that that
agree.
thing out.
No, the 2012 is the big picture. That's why I'm saying if they can't cut $61 billion of the $3.7 trillion, they're never going to get to the big picture.
I think you ought to say we're going to cut $500 billion. They say we're going to cut none on the Democrat. We're going to compromise and cut $200 billion.
I'm losing confidence, Karen, and I'm going to tell you something. Any of these guys that think they're getting a pass, I'm a conservative, and I think our country's going bankrupt, and I want them to fix it, and I don't want them to compromise.
If you want them to fix it, then what we really need is we need Republicans to take control of the Senate as well, because if you had Republicans in control of the Senate and the House, then it would be much easier to pass the sort of budget that Republicans.
So they can't.
But they don't control everything, and you know what? They've made more cuts than a Democrat majority ever would have made.
But wouldn't they be admired
guys,
for keeping
under George Bush?
Yeah.
They spent like a drunken sailor.
Don't go there.
As the economy gets better, just like anybody else, when you get more money in your pocket and the economy will get better or we're done, we'll start spending again. It is a culture that we have.
There's no way you can. There's no way you can continue to do this. $14 trillion deficit?
I agree.
I mean, you can't. You got to call it the line. I tell you what.
Lou, do you mind your Social Security being affected? You and I make enough money, and so do you. And
I could care less about it.
If our Social Security is lessened?
I care less.
I resent the hell out of it.
Okay, tell me that.
I really do.
Okay. People came over from foreign countries, everything else. I was born, there was no safety net, no welfare, no food stamps. My dad went to third grade. You want to talk about being poor, but you learn to get along. Family take care of one another. My parents said, we'll take care of you young. You take care of us when we're old. It's not up to the government.
You know why I resent it? I just accept it as reality. They're not going to get any of that money. They'll means test it. They'll raise the retirement age.
You're going to get it.
But you know why I resent? You know what? Because I paid into it my whole life. They promised they'd put it in a lockbox. And they're like crooks pick your worst corporation, the most corrupt. You know, it's like a Ponzi scheme. They stole it.
No, Social Security buys bonds from our own government, so whether they steal it or not makes no difference. No. It's worth less than 1%.
But that's a phony argument anyway, that you're not going to get it, because anytime we talk about changing the rules in Social Security, it's always 30 to 40 years out, and they're going to up the age, and it's really not going to affect any of us anyway.
Hey, great panel, guys. Good to see you. Thank you. Greta's next. See you tomorrow night.
Nice throw.